Hey guys, welcome back. And today's topic I'm going to be discussing is carbohydrates, all about carbs and why they are pretty difficult to actually store as fat, as contrary to what most media tell you and a lot of doctors and things will tell you. It is quite hard to store them as fat. So let's go over carbs first. Carbs are simple sugars, any sugars, grains, etc. They have 4 calories per gram, just like protein. Fats have 9, so that's why it's, when you do eat fat, it's really a lot higher calorie food. It's over double the amount. Carbs in the form of glucose, say simple sugars, that's our brain's primary fuel. Besides feeding the brain, it also feeds the trillions of cells in our body, helps replenish them, nourish them, also repair any breakdown in the body. It can do that as well, along with protein and amino acids. It's also stored in the liver as glycogen and in your muscles as glycogen. After that, it can be used in dietary thermogenesis, which is the body's energy required to actually digest food. Protein requires quite a bit, carbs do too. So as far as storing fat as, carbohydrates as fat, it's pretty difficult once you go through all these steps of the body using it. Like I said, the brain's primary fuel, glucose from sugars. It can run on fat. It's not as effective. It's not its primary choice, but it can. And I know a lot of people believe, the Atkins, Fatkins diet, things like that. But those are just secondary. It can do it. It's just not as efficient. Carbs, how many do I go for? I go for about 600 grams of carbs a day. That's about 10 per kilo. Most people are like, oh, it's too many carbs, too much, gonna make you fat. Well, you can look at me, I'm not fat, I'm pretty lean. And if you look at history, if you look at the ancient diets of people, before most of them adopted the standard American diet, let's just say Asia, China, Indonesia, places like that, they had a large staple of rice, simple carbohydrates. That was a staple in all their meals. None of them were fat at the time. They had a very thin stature. Also look at Africa, which was a corn, maize, grain type diets, thin, all of them. Look at India, same thing, plant-based, more higher carb diets, thin until they started eating more animal products, as we've encouraged that. The standard American diet has encouraged that. If you look at most people, they think, like I said, carbs are going to make you fat. It's not the case. If they look at the standard American diet, they call for 30% fat. If you look at most people's diet, and if you really look at your own diet, put it in like a calorie counter, or to break it down like a NutriData or something like that, you'll really realize that you are actually probably getting 30 to 50% of your calories from fat. I know everybody's like, oh, no way, not me. But when you start adding up everything, you'll see that that's probably the case. Now, I aim for 600, like I said, grams of carbs a day or more. If I get more, that's great. Because one thing is your liver holds about 100 grams of glycogen, 90 to 110. It depends on you and the size of your liver and your body. And then your muscles can hold 400 grams or more. So like I said, it holds about 600 grams anyway. If you do any type of sport, exercise, things like that, you're going to burn through quite a bit of that. So you definitely need to replenish that. And on top of that, have enough for your brain, dietary thermogenesis, and your cells. Carbs are one of the only macronutrient that begins to break down in the mouth. Once you put it in the mouth, salivary amylase starts breaking it down, starts making it available for use right away. Fats and proteins do not do that. So that's why I think a higher carb-based diet is better. I know a lot of people lose weight on, like I said, the Fatkins and South Beach and all that, but it's not something you can maintain for your whole life. Not everyone wants to be carb depleted their whole life. And if you look at most athletes or anyone that wants to do some fitness, whether it be walking, hiking, running, cycling, anything like that, you're running on carbs. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. There's very few athletes that can run on fats, and it's been done, but it's not the primary source. So if you look at most people before, they're going to be like carb loading. Of course, carbs are what we eat. And if you look at people during, say, marathons and ultra runners and things like that, they're going to be, as their fuel during the races, you're not going to see any of them doing fats or protein. They're not going to be carrying a sack of nuts around. They're not going to be carrying a piece of beef jerky, things like that. Now, the ultra runners, you will get some fats in there. You'll get some peanut butters, nut butters, things like that, just because it's a higher calorie, and sometimes that's what the stomach can tolerate. But if you look at most runners, they're going to be going on sugars, either goos, chews, chomps, dates, dried fruit, fresh fruit, Gatorades, anything of the sugary, because that's what fuels the body for exercise. So anyway, like I said, dietary thermogenesis is one you may want to look up if you're not familiar with it. It can, it's actually, just digestion, and it's the energy that it takes to do that. So there's another way that carbs are burned before they're stored as fat. So storing carbs as fat, pretty difficult. I know that's not mainstream. Most people aren't going to agree with that. But if you'll do the research, which I've done over the last few years, you'll realize real quick that anyone that's followed a carb-based diet is pretty thin. Anyway, just remember, carbs make us happy, and we'll see you next time.